Welcome back, dear viewers. As we told you, we'll be introducing you to Space 4, Industry 4, and the effect of Space 4 on economies of developing nations in tonight's episode of Business Insider. And we are happy to have with us here in the studio Dr. Khaled Yousseif, Vice Dean of Faculty of Navigation Sciences and Space Technology at Beni Suef University. A very good evening to you, Dr. Yousseif. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much. Good evening. Thank you so much.
Dr. Yousseif, dear viewers, allow us to watch a report first by Rasha Abdelhamid and Abir Hussein on our topic and come back and start our discussion.
Broadband can be characterized as a high-speed, always-on internet connectivity. It began to appear in some high-income countries in the late 1990s using the copper wire in ordinary telephone connections, the DSL, or the coaxial cable in cable television networks. In 2001, the first high-speed mobile networks were launched. Today, commercialized fixed broadband networks reach download speeds of 1,000 megabytes over the fiber optic and mobile broadband 300 megabytes over the fourth generation, the 4G long-term evolution networks. By the end of 2014, there were some 748 million fixed broadband subscriptions and 2.7 billion mobile broadband subscriptions around the world. This relatively recent emergence of broadband has already stimulated much discussion of it being a powerful general-purpose technology. Broadband has driven widespread changes in the information technology sector, enabling services such as cloud computing and mobile apps. Equally, it is influencing innovation across many other sectors, including health, transportation, and government. The impact of broadband internet on the economy is therefore a subject of growing interest. Studies on mobile broadband are particularly relevant given the rapid diffusion of mobile technology in developing countries. Mobile has grown particularly fast due to a lenient regulatory environment allowing competition and private sector investment, the ease by which wireless networks can be installed compared to wired infrastructure and flexible payment options like prepaid cards. By the end of 2014, the International Telecommunication Union estimated that fixed telephone connections in developing countries were just 10% or compared to 91 mobile subscriptions per 100 people. Similarly, high-speed wireless internet technologies have been more successful in developing countries than wired broadband. By 2014, mobile broadband penetration was over 4 times higher than fixed broadband penetration in developing countries.
All right, welcome back and thank you for staying with us here in the company of Dr. Khaled Yousseif, the Vice Dean, Faculty of Navigation Sciences and Space Technology, Beni Suef University. Now, Dr. Yousseif, we are talking about Space 4. Certainly there was Space 1, Space 2, and Space 3. Could you walk us through this very interesting phenomena?
Yeah. Actually, the revolution of the space passing through 3 main stages before we come to now. We are now celebrating the launch of what we call the Space 4. But the space as a science and the astronomy, the science back to years, even before century. So usually if we hear about the scientists at the old ages, they are willing to study astronomy and other specialties. So we hear about scientists working on astronomy and medicine, astronomy and mathematics, astronomy and algebra. Then these
especially those famous Arab scientists.
Exactly. So everybody at this era, these scientists are already concerned with astronomy in addition to their main specialty.
That was Space 1.
That was the Space 1, which is the exploration of the space, because there are a lot of secrets in the space associated to every science.
Right. The curiosity was Space 1.
Yeah, the curiosity.
Space 2.
The Space 2 is...
I think we all know about it, I think.
The Space 2, we already, most of us witnessed Space 2 because we hear about the landing of the man on the moon.
Right.
We hear about the satellites.
Right.
We hear about spacecrafts.
Right.
So there was a lot of revolutions in the era of 50s and 40s of this century, talking about space 2.
Right.
Then we go to space 3. Space 3 is the launching of what we call ISS, which is the International Space Stations.
Right.
So we
the
have
permanent station.
The permanent station orbiting the Earth. So we have a manned station, means occupied by people, by human being, and this station is maintained while it flies, remain in the orbit around the Earth for years.
Right.
So this was a revolution.
We are now in space 4. So what?
Till the end of the space 3, till the moment that we have celebrated space 3, all of these missions are governed and planned by the governments. So who was interested were the governments. That's it. So we hear about that time programs by NASA, programs by ESA, programs by space agencies that was at that time concerned with the budget, the planning, the preparation for these missions. Now when we talk about the space 4, we talk about the democratization of the space, which is the space is no more for governments. The space is also for the private sector. So it is a turn down for the space from governmental and governmental missions to what we call the private section of the private era of the space and the business associated with the space. So now we are talking about SpaceX, for example, by Elon Musk, which means that there are business, there are profits behind the space. So it's no more exploration, it is no more...
Could you explain to us this more? I mean, we understand privatization, or it's not just governments caring about, you know, what's out there in space, but what have they added? What has the private sector added to us?
The private sector added the part of the business side of the space, which means that, for example, now you have a lot of entertainments around the internet and the reachability of the internet around the world. What are SpaceX doing now? That it provides a lot of satellites around the Earth in the different constellations, in a low orbit satellites, which its main purpose is to give internet connectivity to the whole Earth. So now you are buying internet not only from your internet service providers through the landline. You can buy internet from SpaceX as a company. So it is not NASA, it's not European Space Agency. It is a company that is providing you internet and investing. Investing means it pay money for launching satellites, for launching missions, and payback for this money is going to be based on a business case analysis and visibility studies. So it is a matter of business environment, business ecosystem.
Understood.
Rather than the government. This is one sector. If you go to a lot of sectors behind, like the use of what we call the Internet of Things, the industrial Internet of Things, means that you need everything to be connected around you. You need to be a smart city, and you need to be a smart city where there is no connectivity, or you are depending on only single line or single access point. If you don't have a backup, if you don't have a redundant solution, then you have a problem. So the space is giving you this redundancy and this reachability.
Right. And surely there is a very important relationship between Space 4 and Industry 4. So could you first walk us again through the four stages, revolutions of industry, and then the current relationship between Space 4 and Industry 4?
Generally, we use usually the digit 4 for the fourth revolution everywhere. So the only exception case was the space. The space, the fourth revolution of the space is democratization of the space. Means that it is valid for everybody, for every business. Industry 4, or Energy 4, or Smart, all of these fourth revolutions that we are facing today in the technology is simply that we are dealing with our ecosystem as a cognitive ecosystem. So everything around us can understand us. If we go to this level of cognition, means we are at the age of the industry or of the fourth revolutions in general. Find it not only in the manufacturing but also in the agriculture. You can find it in the smart communities. We can find it in the smart energy. Means that the energy that are using understand your behavior and helping you to be more economic and more green on the other side. So if the things that you are using, if the machines you are using, even if the material you are using can understand you and be more economic in the operation and helping you to be more toward that, then it is smart. In that case, we call it Industry 4 or the fourth revolution of the industries in general.
Okay.
Industries passing through three main revolutions. We talked about it before.
Yeah.
We talk about the
But we always like to to remember that.
The first revolution in the industry was in the creation of in the generation of the energy, not the creation. The generation of the energy from a non-bio source. For example, the man in the industries is used to make things by hands manually, and this was an era. But when we make the first revolution, means we generate the energy from fossil fuels. So it is a matter of generation of energy from non-bio sources, not the horses for riding the carrots. We go to the second revolution after that, which is the revolution of transportation of energy itself. So we have fossil fuels after we made the first revolution, and we need to transport it to the factories. So it took time. It took huge containers to be transferred.
That's when we saw the trains. And,
so we have at that age
the steam engine,
the electrical energy.
Okay.
So the electrical energy is an energy that could be easily transferred. It is not a clean source of energy. The electrical is not a clean source of energy, but it is easily to be transferred.
Right.
The third revolution is the revolution of the computer and the electronics and that stuff, and means that everything could be computerized or digitalized. And the fourth revolution that everything is digitalized and also cognitive, so can understand us. So this these cameras can understand us, and they can be lightly tuned, lightly deviated according to the behavior, according to the motion. So if we reach this type of cognitive environment, then we are at the Industry 4 revolution.
Wonderful. So, what is the current position, Dr. Yousseif, of Egypt in relation to Space 4 and Industry 4?
Egypt today, because we have usually the first stage in the preparation for any country to be at a position in the space technology in general, not only Space 4, is two main things: is to have education pillar, good education pillar, connected to the state-of-art institutes in the world. And the second pillar is the organization or the agency that is responsible or for managing and funding and budgeting the missions related to the space. So we have two main pillars that should be, and this was the last 5 years in Egypt. When it is decided to go into the space era, we have the first school of navigation science and space technology in the Middle East beside Israel, even before Emirates. And this was the first step that was done by the Egyptian government in 2016. And at that time, by 2018, we have the space agency for the Egyptian Space Agency, responsible for developing and delivering the missions. And one of the main articles in the law for formation of the space agency is to help the startups in the field of the space. Because if I'm a startup, I need to make business. What is the motivative for me to make business? Is it payable? Do we have a break even for this business in terms of business cases? Is it easy to be executed or implemented? Is there a big entry barrier? So we go here to the point of how to enable these startups to be engaged into the market. And this was the role of the society, agencies and the organizations, a lot of organizations involved. From the industrial perspective, we have the Ministry of Military Production engaged, we have the space agency, the Egyptian Space Agency engaged, we have the Remote Sensing Authority engaged, a lot of organizations engaged, in addition to the educational arm that we see the very important to provide the right caliber and the right researches to support these organizations. Egypt at this position is at the at a very good position in terms as a developing country to be exposed to the Space 4. Now we have initiatives for remote sensing companies, for example, being established in Egypt and being engaged in a lot of projects in agriculture and geology and that stuff. So if you manage to have some sort of understanding of the what we call the picture of the geological picture of your rocks, means you can estimate what you have in in the earth in general, in terms of minerals, in terms of key materials and elements, chemical elements, that is important for us to understand that we have it. And then we can, and this is the first step in what we call the transformation in the economy of the countries. Because the first step in the transformation of economy is to understand what your earth contains and to have the know-how to transform it into something that is valuable for the external world to bid for it. So if I have, for example, steel and marble and that's it, marble rocks, it is different than I have a processed marbles ready for construction. So if you have a sand, it is different than I have a sand, but I can process it into silica gel or into silicon. It is different. So the real economy of countries is coming from here. So if we can manage to understand the content and the constitutions of our earth, our rocks, our water, everything, our agriculture, if we can manage and understand and have the science and have the technology to do this, then this is the first gate to the real economy in our countries and any developing countries. So this is the goals that the country is working these days, and this is a clear objective to be for the space industry, if you want to adopt it in Egypt in the right way.
Okay. And what about climate change in light of these new technologies?
The climatology and the climate change is a very important topic for the space chapter, because now we are using the space to anticipate and to measure remotely from the space the change in the sea level. We can use it to measure the deforestations, which means the reduction of the green areas. All of these influencers of the climate change, the estimations of the crops. This is for the chapter of the food insecurity as being managed by the United Nations for the 17 goals of sustainability, development of sustainability goals or sustainable goals. So the space is very important file in terms of managing and reducing the impact of the climate change. Managing because we can anticipate and forecast and going towards 1.5 limit that was mentioned before and was clearly discussed in the COP22 in Paris agreement. And if we need to follow up and monitor this limit, how could we monitor it without having
the space for?
Without having the space technology and the space for engaged for the private companies to go and help us, because the governments only are not. It's not. If the governments mean that you are funding, you are giving money, but you are not seeking for. You can give it for social goals. You can, but the business cycle is different. You have a payback out of your investment.
Yeah, and that's where I guess I can ask you. So, what about Space 4 and its effect on the global economy, on economic growth in general?
As of 2022, the last year, you can imagine that the investment capital for the space technology worldwide reaches $380 billion. This was a direct investments. The number of companies, or let's say the number of entities, either company or government, raised from 8 at 2000. There were 8 companies worldwide.
In the year 2000.
In the year 2000, now we have 400 companies, big companies working in this area. We have SpaceX, we have Airbus, we have Ariane programs, a lot. These are big names, regardless of the other names. These names is responsible now for launching satellites of different types. You can imagine that the mission is not only for the satellites around the Earth. The mission could be satellites around the moon. The mission could be a lander to the moon. The mission could be what we call the exploration in the deep space. You can imagine that James Webb is around 1.5 million kilometers from the Earth. So the man managed to put what we call the Lagrange point from the scientific perspective, which is one of the key points that if we put a space object in it, it keeps synchronized with the Earth and orbiting around the sun. So we put a space object at a 1.5 million kilometers away from the Earth and is rotating around the sun, not the Earth. So you go deep into the space. This means you understand well the space, the astronauts, and also you understand well how could you manage this and get images from this space object on the Earth. So now we're receiving images.
And has any of the images that we received given any indication that there could be life out there, for potential life, I mean, for man out there somewhere?
Till the moment, all the scenes say that there is no life anywhere in the space as being observed by us. This is, you can imagine that.
No life for mankind, I mean,
for mankind.
Or potential life for mankind.
Potential life, another story. Because if we, for example, plan to live on Mars, is it possible or not? This is under study. And there is a potential.
So it's no longer like something, an illusion or something impossible or something,
No.
you know, you as a scientist believe, scientists believe it's a possibility. The thing like we used to talk about for years and years and years.
It is a possibility, but the most suitable environment for the mankind on the Earth till the moment is the Earth. This is the most suitable environment in terms of atmosphere, in terms of gravity. But you can imagine that if we go to the space, there are a lot of solutions for us. The medicine in the microgravity scale means we have what we call the astromedicine, for example. Astromedicine, that you can see that, for example, the carcinoma and the carcinogenic disease is growing in a different manner if you are under no gravity or microgravity. So this was one of the findings out of the space. This is the specialty. We call it astromedicine. We have astrobiology. We have astroagriculture. So you can, instead of being transferred to another place in the space, you can transfer some of the missions that you need to develop your life on Earth. Missions like the agriculture, like the medicine, like and you have today this type of specialities. You can say that there are an output. One of the events or symposiums that I was attending like 1 month ago with the EPESCO and the China Space Agency, I hear from a team in the NASA program that they have reached, and this was published, by the way, they have reached a clear bacterial control in the microgravity scale, totally different than on Earth. So this means that you can develop a new cultures of useful microorganisms, antibiotics, and all of that stuff. So a lot of studies and a lot of the space is another. So now if you make a democratization step and you get the private sector in addition to the public sector, this means you put another dimension for the space. That's why we have today an investments in this huge volume, more than $300 billion.
And just to try to weigh the 380 billion US dollars of direct investment in space technology you mentioned for this year, I mean, that's out of what? I mean, the percentage of investment in space compared to investments in all other fields. I mean,
still the investment in space compared to the other fields is not so big. And it's less than 2-3% of the overall investment.
Still 2-3% is good.
Which is good. Because if you can for any R&D investment is in this range of figures. 2-3%. So this is the step. But the good point is, if you are, as a private sector, did not see a value,
you wouldn't have gone
you
into
will not go into
the issue.
So that's
yeah.
the point.
We only have a few minutes left, so I want you, Dr. Yousseif, to try to answer the episode's question. Then the space for effect on developing nations' economies, on the economies of developing nations at large, a developing nation like ours.
Yeah. That's what that's the conclusion of what we discussed, that, we have today the space for impact on the climate changes. We have the space impacts on the agriculture developments. We have the space impacts on finding what we call the water loggings, or the area of potential water on the earth. We have clear impact of the space on the control of the biological changes and the development of sciences, development of science like the medicine. All of these aspects is clearly indicating that there is a potential economic growth out of using the space. So if we focus on a clear file that is relative to us, each country has a clear file that is significant to the country. So, for example, in Egypt, we are focusing on water and agriculture. This is very significant to us. In other countries, focus on the development in medicine for the developed countries. So there is a clear impact of the economic growth, and this was measured today. We can say that we can have an increase. The part of the energy sector, for example, the climate change and the impact on the use of the fossil fuels, the evolution of the gases, the four greenhouse effect gases, this could be measured from the space today. So the increase and the close monitor of these gases is very crucial for us to control, to stop here and to start here.
Beautifully laid out, Dr. Yousseif. Thank you very much. It's been really informative. Dr. Khaled, Yousseif Vice Dean of the Faculty of Navigation Sciences and Space Technology at Bani Suef University. It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
It's a pleasure is mine.
Thank you. And thank you, dear viewers, for watching us. I hope you've enjoyed this episode as much as I have. This is Mohammed Abdelrahim, and this is a goodbye.